gluing the wings. We use some accelerator. Sure is. The wings are all glued on now, and I've also taken time to mount the motor. It's pretty straightforward. I think anyone can do it. Just mount the plate on the back and put 4 screws into the firewall to hold it. And I also put on the ESC, and TechOne provided a tie wrap here to tie wrap the ESC in, and I just folded these leads back according to what the picture looked like in the directions and tie wrapped them onto the top of the ESC. I also cut out a little bit of foam here to allow those wires to wrap around. Wasn't much. And then all I have to do is hook the motor leads up to that ESC. The connectors were already provided by TechOne. And you can put whatever battery connector you want on this. I think it came with a banana connector, and I switched over to a JST, but you might want to use a Dean's connector or some other connector. So basically all the electronics is now on here. Everything's hooked up to the receiver. All the servos are hooked to the receiver, the ESC is hooked to the receiver. So all I have to do is put a battery in and test it if I want to. But next we're going to work on the tail section. Getting on the elevator and the rudder, get those glued in. The next thing to do is to take the elevator and slide it into the slot like this. And then we're going to CA along the edges of the elevator, top and bottom, and glue this slit together right here. After making sure the elevator is positioned just right, in other words vertically and horizontally, 90 degrees to the body and all, I'm going to apply the CA glue to both sides. Okay, now I'm going to give it a little spritz with the accelerator to make the glue dry faster. And that's about it. Okay, now to glue this vertical stabilizer together where the slot was. A little glue on that. CA glue for everything. Just hold it down. A little spritz. You know what? I think I'm just going to put a little piece of mylar hinge material across that gap to make sure it doesn't spring loose. So I've cut a slot here across this gap, and then I'm going to take and glue in a little mylar hinge material in the slot right there. There we go. I'm going to put a little CA on it. That. And then shove it in there. Alright, the next thing to do is install these 2 carbon fiber rods that came with the kit according to the directions. One here and one over here, and all we got to do is poke them through the foam and glue them in with CA. I'm just going to poke it through. And then poke it through the other side. That's one. Let's see here. Just trying to make it symmetrical. Go in about the same place as the other one. There it is. And we'll just glue in both ends of these carbon fiber rods with a little CA. And where the rods come through on the horizontal stabilizer, we'll just put a little glue there too. And I'm just going to cut off the excess carbon fiber rod that's sticking out here. That looks a little better. Alright, next thing is to glue on the vertical stabilizer here, which has the rudder already hinged on it. I'm using a liberal amount of glue because this EPP really soaks it up. I just try to get it in the center best I can. I'm going to go along the edges later and put glue along the sides right in here. So this is just going to temporarily tack it in place, make sure it's centered. Okay, let's go ahead and put some glue along the edges. Do that both sides. Next we're going to work on putting the pushrod connectors on the servo arms. The directions say to use an egg wheel to make the hole a little larger on the servo arm. Well, I don't have an egg wheel, which looks like this. Don't know where to get one. So what I'm going to use is a drill bit. So we come up to the servo arm and we're just going to drill out this hole to fit the pushrod connector. I made sure the drill bit was a little bit bigger than the stem on the pushrod connector so that it can swivel a little bit. I've taken the servo horn off, or servo arm, and I'm going to install the pushrod with a washer on each side and a nut and maybe a drop of CA glue to hold the nut. But I do want this pushrod connector to be able to turn in that hole. There's the pushrod connector installed on the servo arm, and there's a little bit of CA on the nut. You could have used Loctite, or if I had some Loctite I would have used it. But I think the CA is going to hold it, and it allows the pushrod to rotate a little bit in the arm. And then we can just install it back on the servo. Now we're going to do the same thing on the left wing that we did on the right wing. The rudder and elevator are going to be done a little bit differently. Pushrod connectors are now installed on the servo arms for the wings. And they look like that. Now for the rudder and for the elevator, in this case it's a rudder, we're going to use this servo arm extension that came with the kit. And that mounts right on top of the original servo arm like that. So I'm going to have to pull this screw out, put that in the hole, and then there's one other screw I got to put in. Alright, I'm screwing the center screw in. Now we got one to put down in here. The screw that came with the kit to do that job is one very small screw. Okay, gonna screw in this tiny screw. And that's what it looks like when it's done. Okay, now I'm going to install the elevator control horn. And there it is. Next we're going to install the control horns on the control surfaces, on the ailerons, elevator, and rudder. There's 4 of them. Next we're going to install the control horn perpendicular to the servo, and we're going to try to keep the pivot point, which is right here, over the top of this slot as much as possible, where the hinge line is. So the more this control horn pivot point can be over that center line, the better we are. And then we're going to try to make a small slit right here to push this horn into the foam. Glue it down with some CA glue. And there is the servo horn glued in and lined up with the servo arm. And there's both sides done. Okay, we're going to do the elevator control horn next, and we're going to make sure it's the pivot points over the hinge line, and the horn is aimed at the servo, which is down there. And we're just going to cut the slot right here and glue it in. In case you're wondering, I have the control horn about 40 millimeters away from the side of the body. And on the wing control horn, it was more like 100 millimeters. But you can place them according to your eyeball. Alright, it's been tacked in, but I'm going to put a little more CA along the edges and then hit it with some accelerator. Now we're going to install the rudder control horn, again keeping the pivot point over the hinge line right here and perpendicular to the servo arm. I've flipped the plane upright again, and here's what the control horn looks like for the rudder, and it's aimed over here at the rudder servo. Next job will be installing the Z-bend control rods. I got a Z-bend on one end, and of course the other end is just going to go into these pushrod things we put on right here and just get screwed down. They're totally adjustable, so they ought to work pretty good. Okay, let's do one of the wing control rods. We'll just insert it into the horn, put the Z-bend in there, rock it around. Now it's on there. Then we'll just cut off the excess, leaving us a little extra. Like that. And then we just put it into this pushrod holder like that. There we go, and we can adjust it when we get it the way we want it. Later on we'll tighten it down with a screwdriver. Just lightly, not too much. There we go. Now we'll do that to the other three. Okay, now doing the elevator servo. The rod's installed on the horn, and now we'll put it in this push rod connector. And there we go. Just tighten it down and it'll be good. Okay, now that we're done connecting up the control surfaces, let's connect the wires to the motor, and then we'll put on a battery and align the control surfaces. Alright, connecting up the motor. Now of course, if this motor runs backwards, we can always just switch two of these wires around. We'll find that out when we get the propeller on. Alright, there's the motor. Okay, we're going to align the rudder servo. So let's turn on the radio. Okay, I got a model programmed in there for, you can see, for the TechOne Yak. It's a Yak54, and I've got all the controls set to center position. Okay, battery being plugged in. Okay, as we can see, the rudder is not aligned very good. Looks like right now it's set for a right-hand turn. We need it to be in the center. So what we can do is move the servo arm. Actually going to have to take it off and put it back in a better position. That's as close as I can get it right now. The other control surfaces, let's see, they don't look too bad. They're sort of in center position just the way they are. So we probably don't need to do too much to those. Just a little trimming on the radio will take care of them. Okay, we're installing the prop now. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little flat place on the shaft right there. And the other thing is, we want to get the bigger side of this prop saver out, the bigger ring here, because that's what fits best for the prop. The little one lets it wiggle around too much. So we want that big side, and we'd like to get one of the screws on that flat place on the shaft to prevent it from slipping. So let's just get it lined up on the flat place. You can kind of feel when you got it. There it is. Get both sides tight. Alright. Put the prop on there. Now getting these O-rings on is sometimes a little tricky. I'm going to stretch it out. Try to hook it on one screw, bring it around. Alright. Finally got it on with a pair of pliers, but it's really a awfully small O-ring for that size prop. Might want to go to a larger size, but anyway, we got it on there. Now we got to find out if the motor goes the right direction. To do that, I better get it over on the edge of the table. Okay, I'm going to plug up the battery. Got the radio on first, of course. Plug up the battery. Oh. Alright, we'll see which way it goes. It's supposed to go counterclockwise, and it is going counterclockwise. So it looks like we don't have to switch two of the wires. We're in good shape. Alright, now I'm just going to put the landing gear together. I'm putting on what the directions call a wheel pant. And you need an Allen wrench for that. I think the screw's a little bit too tight. Get that Allen screw back off a little. Now the wheel pant is on the axle. Tighten it up. And now we got some landing gear. And those can be stuck in this slot right here. You know, I think when I test fly it, I'm not even going to have landing gear on it. Because knowing me, I'll probably break them off or something when I'm testing it. So, but that's how they look. It's like that. And then there's one that you can glue on the rear. Just put a little CA glue and carve a little hole back here and just glue it right there for the tail wheel. But I'm going to leave that off for now while I do the test flight. Well, that's what it looks like with the landing gear on it. But like I said, I'm going to take them off and go out for a little test flight. Alright, here's the test. Oh. Very floaty. I'm only running about half throttle, as you can hear. John's the videographer.
Oh.
Ready now?
It keeps going on to focus. There it is. Okay, go ahead. Getting out of the blue quick.
I'm going to land it in the short grass. Alright, that completes the build of the TechOne Yak54. Next we're going to work on the Extra 330, also a TechOne. And as you can see, the Extra 330 wing is already glued in one piece. It comes that way. And these are almost ready to fly planes. So let's give it a test right now since it's almost ready to fly. Well, I did say almost.